Have any of you ever tried to talk yourself out of doing something? That was me, preparing for this talk. No, don't get me wrong. I was really looking forward to sharing with you about the healing power of touch, especially since COVID-19 has left most of us afraid of hugging, me included. But there are two versions of this talk, and two versions of me. The first, let's call her Business Holly. She's professional, composed. She might start this talk with a Virginia Satir quote: 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 hugs a day for maintenance, 12 hugs a day for growth. Or maybe she would wow you with the neuroscience of touch, allowing you to understand that you can heal PTSD by rubbing the outside of a trauma victim's arms. But there's another version of me. This one I like to call Freak Flag. This is the woo-woo version of me, the one that would throw her phone in the river tomorrow if she could run a business without it. This is the curious inner child who prefers to sleep outside, the one who goes crazy on the dance floor, and the musician who writes the songs whispered to her by her dead father. Freak Flag and Business Holly had a talk about this talk that went something like this. Tell the story. Stories help people remember. I am not telling that story. Why? It's interesting. It's weird. People might get uncomfortable. But discomfort means you're growing. Come on, let me tell it. No. Yes, I tell it better. Okay, fine. We'll tell it together, but just don't use that title when you tell it. I won't. This is the story of the time I performed an accidental exorcism in Costa Rica. 2 years ago, I traveled into the jungles of Costa Rica for a weekend life transformation retreat. I had just become single for the first time in a decade, just started my own business, and became a hypnotist a few weeks earlier. I was ready to re-enter the world from a place of soul alignment. I get off the bus, check into my bungalow, turn off my cell phone, slather myself in tea tree oil to keep the bugs at bay, and join a group of self-proclaimed conscious entrepreneurs for a plant-based feast. Our facilitators arrive, a life coaching husband and wife duo. We soon found out that our male guide, let's call him K, was suffering from severe sleep deprivation because of PTSD. He hadn't slept a whole night in 4 months. He apologized and said he would offer what he could, but he was really there for the jungle to heal him too. After dinner, he pulls me aside and asks, will I do some hypnosis sessions with him? Of course, I'm happy to do whatever I can to help. So the next day, I led him in a simple guided meditation to help him relax and make peace with the part of him that was preventing sleep in order to keep him safe. He seemed to feel a little better and told me he was even able to nap a little. The next evening, after dinner, we went on a night hike into the jungle. I remember shining my flashlight along the clay path to look out for scorpions and snakes. We arrive at a platform and light candles in a circle. Our facilitators are seated at the middle of the circle on a yoga mat. And the female guide grabs a candle and holds it to her face like she's about to tell a ghost story. We're going to perform a healing ceremony tonight, she says, and Holly is going to lead us. I find myself nodding, yes, I will lead the healing. First of all, I have no business performing a Costa Rican healing ritual. I had only completed my hypnosis certification a few weeks earlier, but for some outrageous reason, I believed that if I believed and they believed, maybe it would work. But I did know 2 very important things about healing. Number 1, when I was growing up in the church in Florida, I had seen people lay hands on each other for healing. And number 2, I knew exactly what was happening inside of his traumatized brain. When trauma encodes itself on the brain, when you look at the surface of the neuron, there are these little soldiers, these AMPA receptors that stand up at attention, and they alert the amygdala to release stress hormones, preparing the body to fight, flight, freeze, or faint. A protein called glutamate acts like a cement, binding these soldiers into place so that they can never go at ease. And the way to heal PTSD is to get these soldiers to go back inside the cell, and that can happen through touch. He lay down in the center of the circle and we gathered around him. I'm kneeling at his head and I instruct the rest of the group to put their hands on him in a sweeping motion and make a sound that sounds like shoo, 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 shoo. I lead him into a trance and he starts to cry. And so I begin humming to him like comforting a small child. Suddenly, his body starts to convulse like something out of The Exorcist, and he starts to cough these deep, raking croup coughs. If you've ever seen The Green Mile, there's a scene where John Coffey resurrects a dead mouse, and he coughs these black beetle things up into the air. That's exactly what it was like. This goes on for an hour, me sweating buckets, holding this man's head in my lap while he's crying and shaking and hacking into my face until finally his body goes silent, still, empty. We carry him back to his room, and I sat on the edge of his bed and prayed over him, and he slept the entire night. His PTSD was gone. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Here's what happened inside of his brain and how our touch healed him. Hugs, touch, pressure on the upper body, head, and hands create delta waves inside of the brain. These slow-moving brainwave patterns open up a calcium channel that releases an enzyme. This enzyme eats the protein cement, freeing the soldiers and sucking them back inside of the cell. The brain literally forgets the trauma ever happened. That night was both science and spiritual for me, reminding me that love, physical, emotional, neurochemical, spiritual, heals. Oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine released when you're hugging reduce inflammation, improve immunity, reduce anxiety, depression, and heal trauma. Hugs heal and rewire the brain. If you're ever having a panic attack or nervous about a speaking engagement, the simple act of self-hugging tells your nervous system that you're safe. Children need hugs to prevent trauma. The first time I heard about adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs, I cried because I realized that I had 5 of the 9 most common childhood traumas, adverse childhood experiences. And I finally understood why I had struggled with depression and anxiety my entire life. As ACEs increase, health decreases. Death, divorce, family incarceration, violence in the home are linked to the leading causes of death in this country because as the child enters adulthood, they seek to regulate their dysregulated nervous system by choosing smoking, drugs, alcohol, food, sugar, anything to help them feel better. But safe, loving touch is the antidote. The more you hug a baby, the faster their brains grow. The more you hug a child, the more emotionally resilient they become. As hugging returns post-vaccination, you might want to ask for consent first before going in. Or maybe you can ask if they want an elbow bump, fist bump, or a high five. But if you can't hug safely yet, you can still get the same brain benefits by booking a massage, hugging a pet, or even hugging yourself. Let's do it together toward the end of this talk. Yeah. 4 hugs a day for survival. 8 hugs a day for maintenance. 12 hugs a day for growth. And if you need me, you can find me in the back giving myself a daily dose of growth. Thank you.